Three, two, one. We're live. I'm very sorry. I accidentally pressed the button. Whoops. Happy birthday, Stephen. Happy birthday
Cheers. All right.
to you. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks, guys.
Happy birthday, dear Stephen. Sorry about that. I pressed live too early.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello, and welcome. You are listening to Let's Drone Out. Today's Thursday. May the 4th be with you. Curry Kitten is with us. Everyone's favourite, Curry Kitten.
Hello.
And as soon as he's taking a sip of a beer, it's Stephen's birthday. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to episode 401 of Let's Drone Out.
Yep. And we are also joined by my buddy Cole.
Howdy.
And I'm Bright Until I Fly. Let's start the show. Sorry, Stephen was telling us that he tried some, what was it, 10S fun?
Yeah. 10S
How did
quad.
that go?
Well, I went down to visit Jack and we had a little fly. And one of the things I took with me was this 10S quad that I've been building. There was a small amount of sparking and smoking from the slightly, perhaps made on someone's kitchen table ESC that I'm using. But it flew. For some reason, the VTX wasn't working. So I was like, oh, whatever. It was working on the bench. It was a CADX Vista, and I'd gone through the setup, done WTF-OS, set up the on-screen display, and verified it was working on a 12-volt supply on the bench. Plugged it into the 10S, so 42 volts. Motors are okay, flies stable, no worries. Line of sighted it, put it in angle mode, and gave it a punch, whereupon it disappeared into the heavens without any worries. Came back down, no problems, but yeah, no video. So I was like, oh, okay, well, it flies. I gave it a couple of punch outs to make sure it was okay, but was kind of scratching my head on that. And I looked at the Matec docs, and it's got this big beck in the middle with an optional output. So you can jumper 2 pads to get 9 volts. You can jumper a different 2 pads to get 12 volt. And according to the documentation, if you bridge both the 12 volt and the 9 volt pad, you're supposed to get 16 volts out. And I was feeding it 12 on the bench. So I was like, oh, it's under 16. So it's probably just passing through what it gets. And I'd assumed it would give me 16 when I was at the field, which is what you're supposed to do according to their docs for like 10S and 12S setups. You go for the higher voltage, get more efficiency. But yeah, the field, it wasn't working. And on the bench, I connected the 10S LiPos and quickly checked the voltage output. And it was giving me 42 volts to my VTX. That's not good. That's not good at all.
What is the limit of the voltage you can put into the Vista?
6S. Definitely doesn't like 10S. And yeah, you can see the little blurb down the side there. It's like bridge 1 pad, get 9 volt. Bridge the other pad, get 12 volt. Bridge both pads, get 16 volts. So I was like, yeah, okay, bridge both pads, get 16 volt. No, definitely getting over 40 volts. So that wasn't happy. And it had a little red kind of, when it pulls power from the UART, it kind of gives you a little kind of ghostly red glow, like half lights one of the LEDs, and you can tell it's not good when it's doing that. That's what happens if you plug in USB, but you don't get the LiPo power either. The weird thing is, once I actually checked that beck and I couldn't get a sensible voltage out of it, and then heating up and swapping over, I think I knocked off one of the passives next to those bridges anyway, so I was just like, screw it. I didn't. The beck in that board, if you flash that up again, Jack, it's quite a good diagram, kind of illustrates that the beck isn't actually part of the flight controller. The beck is actually like a separate board that is soldered onto the middle of the flight controller. Like there's a square gap in the middle of the flight controller and a bunch of solder bridges down the side, and they just drop the daughter board of the beck on. So I was able to actually unsolder those out ground in pads and then prise the glue off. And I already had one of these that I got for another project, so I just dropped that in, set it to 12 volts, and it's fine. And I was just writing it off as like a dodgy beck for whatever reason. It seems fine now. I've swapped that. But yeah, the Vista was still working as well, which was the insanely good bit that I wasn't expecting. I might have to leave it running on the bench with a fan on it and make sure it stays working at 10S. But yeah, after being taken up to 42 volts for a few minutes,
Wow.
It seems okay, touch wood. So we'll have to see how that goes, because that's the last Vista I had. We'll see how that goes.
How are the stocks of Vistas nowadays?
I think we've gone through the flash sale, and now it's like getting a bit low on stock, to be honest. So we'll have to see. I mean, there's always that whole, I might upgrade my other quad to something that's better than a Vista. I might upgrade this one to O3. I might upgrade that one to Walk Snail. So there's that kind of musical chairs arrangement where I could free up one by upgrading something else to something better, and then like put something into that 10S quad. But yeah, nothing easy to get right now. Anyway, it flew well, which is good. There was no kind of oscillations, no flyaways, no smoke, no drama. Plug in the lipos, and off we went. The hardest thing is trying to get two lipos sitting side by side on the top plate, and then, you know, monkeying around with the leads so that they're clear of the props, and you can still plug in both batteries at the same time without the balance leads getting sucked down into the props. That took a bit of juggling, but yeah, it's good. Promising.
So you can't get Vistas or anything, but what about that RunCam Link or Wasp? Is that?
Oh, they're all the same thing. So what we call the Vista was a DJI product that Cadex sold as the Vista. It's called the DJI Air Unit Lite, right? So Cadex sold it as Vista. RunCam sold it as Link. And did someone else ever sell it? Was there ever a... Anyway, it was the same thing. That comes from DJI. And the camera comes from RunCam, or it comes from Cadex or whoever. And then put the two together and sell it as a product. Yeah.
And so I also understand you attempted to made in your lovely little plane.
Yeah, it's still in one piece, thank God. But yeah, I mean, it was on a ridge, and it was blowing a gale, like enough that birds of prey were kind of hovering on the ridge line where the wind was hitting the cliff and punching up. And this, as you can see, is not a terribly large plane. So what happened when the wind got it, it just kind of went very dramatically kind of and flipped around upside down, even though it had full throttle. I think it was not powerful enough to handle that sort of condition. And I, as a pilot, had no idea what I was doing. I was hoping I'd get a couple of seconds grace while the thing gained altitude before I had to start jamming the controls one side or the other. So I wasn't really prepared for it either, and down it went. A couple of cracks, bit of yoo-hoo pour, which I gather is the traditional approach, and it looks good. We flew some analog quads as well, which is nice. I had a 4-inch analog build that I'd been meaning to do for ages, and traveling down to Jack was impetus to go rebuild that, and Jack was kind enough to let me fly one of his, which I must say has sparklingly clear video for an analog build. I don't know what magic he's worked on that, but it's crystal clear video, which is pretty impressive.
What are you running on it, Jack?
The de-lidded, the de-lidded Tramp. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Tramp HV, and with a Foxeer whatever camera I've got. So it is
T-Rex, is it, or?
There was no static. Nah. It was just like the kind of perfect picture you'd see if you were like, you were just connecting a camera straight up to a goggle. Like there was no sign of a VTX being involved in the process at all. No motor noise. Really nice, crisp video. So yeah, good work on the build, man.
Twisting. I guess twisting your video wires makes a difference, or is a testimony to Tony with a Tramp. So.
Yeah, I still love my Tramps. They work great.
Yep, I think that one no, it's the other one that's my second quad. Even Cole was nice enough to grab me one from Taiwan. So you know they are quite hard to get hold of now.
Yeah, you can't find them anywhere in Canada anymore. I think there is actually one, but I'm not sure if it's still available, but there's a place called Great Hobbies in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, and they have apparently one Tramp HV left. Last time I checked, which was maybe a month or two ago now, but no other stores in Canada, no other stores in America, really.
Wow.
But apparently they had them in Taiwan, so that was pretty lucky. And they were super cheap. I got them for like, I think maybe less than $10 each. It was like they were like a quarter of the price of what they're, or maybe a third of the price. So it's pretty good.
Is this the typical Immersion RC thing where nothing gets discontinued? They just run out of them for a while and then they might make a new batch. A bit like Power Play, that ran out for ages and they've just got new ones in.
I don't know. I don't know whether. I don't know.
Is there a successor? Is the question, or is that the only product in the range?
Well, when you go to the Immersion website and you go to the Tramp HV listing, it says buy now. You click it and it brings you to a broken Amazon link that has a little dog that says, sorry, we couldn't find that page.
Yeah. Definitely like keeping the web pages updated.
Yep.
Well, should we talk about the big news of the week, which must be Orca and its interesting time bomb in the bootloader code, which
the joy
which
of
is
software copyright assignment sounds like.
Yeah, it's interesting just for the fact that the guy that developed it is doubling down on the fact that he thinks it's legitimate and it's not ransomware, and they somehow wrote this with a time restricted copyright, presumably wanting to get another payment from Orca before they release another firmware. And I can't imagine any company signing any sort of agreement to that. So it's interesting.
Well, there's two sides to this. One, they may not have explicitly signed an agreement for it, but they may not have explicitly taken copyright assignment of the code in the contract they wrote for the developer. And unless you explicitly take copyright assignment of someone's work, it will remain their property. So if they wrote a contract for him to write software, and they said, you just have to write the software and you have to deliver the software to us without explicitly saying you shall give all copyright assignment to us along with the work you're doing for us, then he's got a legal platform to stand on and say, well, actually, I wrote it and I still have copyright assignment. And for the purposes of this deal, I've granted you the use of my work. And I could revoke that later.
Yeah, although that you'd kind of think any company that contracts someone to write a piece of code for them would A, ask for the copyright of the code, B, get the source code, because as I understand it,
Orca
they
are
delivered...
a brand new company. They're a brand new company. And this type of stuff that we're talking about, like making sure you've got copyright assignment, making sure that all the legal stuff is cleared up, that happens in big companies. And I work for a very large company where they're very hot on this, and they check every bit of software, and you have to attribute every bit of code that you use and make sure that there is a good license behind it, and the license isn't going to be a time bomb. But with a small company like Orca, it's their first product. They're a brand new company. And I think they may not actually have the caution to think about these things. If the people involved haven't been involved in a software company before, they haven't dealt in this world before, they could have gone and asked someone to write something for them and not properly understood the ramifications of asking someone to do work for them, but they didn't own the work after the person had done it for them. That's the trouble. You ask someone to do work for you, but you don't own the work in perpetuity.
It does seem pretty Mickey Mouse to allow someone to deliver. Here's an encrypted binary that you will never see or read, and it's ours, but it's okay. And later on, we just may decide.
But you'd be surprised when you get outside the world of software development, Curry. A lot of people just don't think about this. They're like, oh, you've done it, you've delivered it. Oh, there's the file. And we just have to put the file here and it works. Great, done. Whereas you and I would be like, wait a minute, what happens if this breaks? How do we know how it works? What happens if we need to maintain it later?
Yeah, where's the paperwork? Where's the contracts? Where's all the...
That's a whole other world that a lot of people
I thought that was a common sense thing. I didn't think you have to be in software development for that.
You have to be bitten by it, and then you're like, oh,
yes.
I'm not going to do that again.
You learn once, and then you never relearn again, because it's for sure.
Well, I know in the previous few years, Orca were starting to recruit their own people in sort of development terms, which is probably why they've managed to crank out this fix to repair it at least, so they didn't have to go through the hassle of like paying this guy off. It'd be interesting to see how this case comes out, because you've got one guy claiming one thing, one claiming another. It seems to be one would say not, not legal advice, not in the spirit of any sort of contract to provide something which you suddenly sort of revoke later on, though. That would seem very odd.
Yeah. I mean, hey, as of today, they got the fix, download new firmware, unbricking procedure. So, I mean, it seems like they got it figured out pretty quick. But then again, what's going to happen down the line? I guess it'll unfold for us, and I'm sure it'll be more comments in the peanut gallery, and we'll get to see how it all goes.
There's a few things that are red flags there. It'll be interesting
yeah.
to see how it pans out. Like the fact that they didn't check what was inside a blob like this, they didn't have someone do due diligence on it before it shipped. That's just, it's amateur hour, really. It's quite an indictment that they got this far and it's been out in the field and they thought everything was fine because they didn't know what was going on. Wait, if you're in software and you think everything's fine and you don't understand the problem space, you're setting yourself up for a fall sooner or later.
Yeah, you want to make sure you look at everything before you release a product.
You've got to appreciate what could go wrong before you can assure yourself that nothing will go wrong.
Yeah, I guess easier said than done, though. I mean, you never know what happens behind the scenes for companies and who runs it, and who's not checking each line of whatever, or I don't know the whole thing behind it. But yeah, I'm obviously it can happen, and it did happen, and it does happen. So it's I guess it's a lesson to a lot of people, check your shit and make sure.
I suppose, the question is, does this damage Orca's reputation for being a bit naive about how they put their code together and stuff, or do they come out looking quite good because it was clearly a sort of a bad actor involved and they put a fix out quickly? That said, Orca was promising their own digital system like 2 years ago, and that hasn't materialized. So they haven't done much in recent times, have they, about developing stuff?
Well, yeah, they promised there was going to be a slew of updates and a never-ending stream of software development that you're going to deliver a hardware unit and there was going to be new functionality coming in via upgradable software. And as of, I think, sort of 6 months ago, I think that the last update to their app was in September. There's no new features. They put this FBV Connect board out and they gave people a controller, which, as far as I can tell, hasn't really made a big splash. It was released, it did ghost, and I'm not seeing anyone make noise about it. Like, I'm seeing people talking about the Tango 2, I'm seeing people talk about the Radio Master Boxer. I don't see anyone talking about the Orca controller. So it feels like a lot of their stuff, they hyped it in 2021, and through 2022, they're releasing stuff. And now we get to 2023, and it feels like it's been really quiet on the Orca front for 6 months until we get to this unfortunate event.
Well, I remember a year ago, they hyped up some basically like, VTXs or digital boxes and whatnot. And there was like 3 different ones, I think. But yeah,
there were a couple of photos taken at a trade show, which I think you're referring to. They put this cabinet at a trade show, and they illustrated that they had a bunch of digital VTXs, and they were going to be working in different spectrums. I think they had a 2.4 gig one and a 5.8 and a 1.3 or something like this, and maybe also one that worked over 4G. And they were kind of putting it out there like, here's a picture of the casing. We didn't know if there was a PCB inside, but there were pictures of the VTX like boxes, the casing or heatsink that was going to be on the VTX with labels on them, kind of implying that, we are intending to make this, but it's been a very long time since that announcement, and that appears to have been a one-off. Maybe they were trying to fish for contracts, and the contracts never arrived, so the R&D didn't happen, and it just dead-ended.
Yeah, I think I remember someone talking about like the goggles would have, you could do digital and analog built in on some of the newer ones or whatever, but that was a while ago now. I can't remember all the details, but
they seem to have, unfortunately, not stepped up to match what HD0 did. HD0 made this huge splash. I think it's fair to say that everyone is looking at HD0 for analog right now, even though it's a digital goggle first. The fact that they've put a lot of effort into the analog input really shouts premium, whereas Orca, I think, are now on the second rung behind them. as the second best option.
What for analog?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's true. If I was buying an analog pair of goggles now, I wouldn't know what to get. It's a very good point. It used
still
to
plenty
always just be
happy.
Fat Sharks, of course.
Yeah.
But
I was
yeah,
really
let me
happy with
think.
the Skyo 4X. I mean, they were pretty good. I got them with a coupon a while back, imported them for cheap, and yeah, they were great. Like I said, I was flying Jack's quad, and I thought the video was just excellent. You get that kind of frame combining stuff, gives you pretty good range, minimizes interference.
Yeah, here they said the perpetrator was particularly I can't pronounce that word.
Perfidious?
Yeah, perfidious, because kept occasional business relationship with us over the last years and was waiting for the code bomb to detonate. So they said it was kind of like an almost ransomware was programmed to explode to cause maximum crisis.
Yeah, but there's two people in this, right? There's them and the person they hired to write the code, and they've got a Facebook page as well. So they're both saying the same thing, but with very, very different language. Orca are calling it ransomware, and the guy who wrote the code is calling it a license and saying, well, you know, the license was timed to expire, and it's my code, and I'm going to charge them to relicense the code that I wrote for them. And it really is something that, at the end of the day, it needs to be decided in court, right? We need to figure out exactly who does own the code and what the rights are. And if the code was licensed to Orca and Orca agreed at some point that they need to pay, then the courts need to decide that. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but
I mean, all that stuff should have been all been dealt with before those goggles
in the contract,
even
right?
came out. Yeah.
And if Orca are going to accuse the guy of ransomware, they need to point to the copyright assignment in the code, in the contract, that says, you know, this guy didn't have right to do what he's doing. And it shouldn't be on Facebook by calling someone a perfidious whatever. It should just be in black and white, like Orca owns all software and source code related to blah, 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 or they don't all own all source code and they are paying for a time-limited license or access to the code, in which case, you know, it's going to fall down the other person's camp.
I have a strong feeling there's no contract either way, and it falls into this weird grey area. Perfidious, by the way, according to dictionary.com, because I didn't have a clue either, means deliberately faithless, treacherous, deceitful.
Yeah.
I reckon you look that word up, though. No one just rolls perfidious off their tongue.
Someone put that for a thesaurus for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, first time I've come across that.
That's a big word.
Yeah, I know. Big word for Jack.
The thing is,
early in the morning.
As Dom says, like, if there was a license, it would have a date. But this wasn't timed to all go off on April the 29th. Apparently, it just starts on April the 29th, and then it's going to randomly dribble out. And it was set for, according to the person that wrote the offending code, the time bomb is set to detonate randomly from April the 29th. So if yours works and you're thinking, oh, I got off lucky, no, you should probably still upgrade because it might just randomly blow up. The weird thing is that they expressly stated that it was only for consumer goggles, and any goggles that were part of a deal for government or military or corporate sales were excluded, which seems strange. So that they don't want to annoy any large companies, but they're happy to kind of throw this in the face of regular consumers, which again makes it look a little particularly shady, because if this had been a general license scheme, it should affect everyone equally, you'd have thought.
Yeah, or it could be that sometimes, like the old sort of thing, like the ISO 9001 gubbins and rubbish would mean you have to have procedures and stuff and have to know everything. So perhaps the goggles sold into government go out with a completely different bootloader that they had to write themselves, because like, oh, selling into government means we have to do different things and different ways of doing stuff for them to do business with us.
This is why it looks shady, I think, because they're basically saying, oh, don't worry, we didn't put this on the government ones, so there's going to be no large institutions or government lawyers coming after us, and we're not worried about regular Joe on the street sicking his lawyer on us, which makes
it's
look
definitely
like
shady.
the guy's shady.
It's it's definitely not good, but I think he's trying to exploit a grey area rather than, like, it's not all out ransomware. But it's clearly, if there was some license to say Orca holds the copyright of this code or whatever, then he couldn't have done it either. So it's somewhere in the middle. But yeah, we'll follow it. We'll eat popcorn, and we'll just read about them shouting at each other on Facebook, which is a weird way of doing illegal proceedings, but it works for us.
Yeah.
I guess we'll be happy that we don't have Orca goggles.
Right, yeah. I've gone from thinking, oh, they're premium. Have I missed out on some part of this premium experience, to thinking, well, don't seem to have followed up on all the software promises they made. And now I'm thinking, oh, wow, I actually dodged a bullet by not going for those. So interesting how time changes perspectives.
My HDOs are still trusty. So
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Cole, if you can build a drone, you can definitely build a PC.
Yep.
So that might be an option.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, it's just plug this, plug that.
Or you can buy something cheap and make it better, right? Because the box for a PC and the power supply and maybe the motherboard are what you need. You can always upgrade it from there, get something off the shelf, plug in a GPU, add a bit more memory. These are trivial things to do. Once you've done those, the rest seems less scary.
I think because I'm a Mac user, I think really the only thing that's going to be that difficult, I guess, is making a bootable disk with a Windows operating system.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain if you've only got a Mac, but you can do it.
Yeah,
there's tools.
I mean, there's no way it's that hard. I mean, yeah, you get a case, you have a power supply, you have a motherboard, you have hard drives, SSD, RAM, graphics card. That's basically it, right?
Yep, pretty much. It's like plug tab A into slot A. Like, does this cable fit in here? Okay, click. And the manuals are always pretty good for motherboards as well. They still tend to ship paper manuals, which is a godsend. So you can always be like, oh, the worst part of the little LEDs in the front of the case when you go to plug the motherboard in. If you buy something that's already pre-built, you don't have to worry. But if you buy a separate case and motherboard, you've got these little jumpers, and you've got to be like, this is the LED ground and this is the LED positive, and and now when I switch the power on, the LED either lights up or doesn't light up. That's about the hardest part. The rest is just there's a single place where this fits and you plug it in there.
I still must put in my my little 2 cents about this is wrong. This is wrong because Cole is getting the PC for his other half.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Design on it.
Yeah,
and graphic design must be done on a Mac. Nothing wrong with using a PC with a nice graphics card. They run the same applications.
You can do it on a boutique
PC.
It's
just
with a wood
if you go to
exterior.
any design agency, there's racks of Macs everywhere. It's a Mac thing. I don't know why.
If you're going to be truly boutique, you see, the trouble with Macs is now they used to be elite, but now a basic Mac is kind of a plebeian choice for a designer. What you really want is a boutique PC with some kind of nice wood exterior, all kinds of tasteful design on it, and then you run it as a Hackintosh, so you can once again be elite and above everyone else instead of just buying a generic Mac like people are using, like your grandma's using to browse Facebook. You've got to be a cut above that.
Yeah, but if you want to do a Hackintosh, you got to jump through a bunch of hoops and watch a bunch of tutorials I
your face
honestly,
in a toaster oven, slam the door on your arm. Yeah, all of that. It's not a good experience for sure. And the instant you upgrade them, they tend to just balk and fall over from the sound of it too.
Yeah, I did see it with that idea.
There was an interesting video I saw about a man managing to run OS 9, the previous Mac
Lion
OS,
I think
on this Lion is 10 point something. We're talking about
9,
Mac 9,
not OS X.
Not OS X.
Power
True.
PC,
not OS X.
Yeah. Power
PC. He was running it on the Nintendo Wii. I was quite impressed.
Holy shit! Really?
Did he run out of pins to shove under his nails or something? Why was he doing this?
just for funsies,
Funsies.
or because like, oh, I like to spend 60 hours trying to do something just to see if it can be done, and then the fonts didn't work. But apart from that, it actually looked quite good.
See, like if it was for me,
who connect their Amigas to the internet, you're just like,
yeah.
Why?
I was gonna say though,
Sorry,
if it was for me, I might dive into the world of building a PC and just learning and figuring out how to do it. But because it's not for me, I don't want to I don't want to be learning with someone else's money, especially, I guess actually that's the best way to learn really is with someone else's money. But, I don't know. You can get some pretty powerful computers these days that are just, ready to go and somewhat affordable, especially if you know how the sales system works.
And you've got someone
stores.
to complain if it breaks. The trouble is, if you're buying a PC for yourself and you want to like shave a couple of $100 off it and get exactly what you want, that's fine, because if you can't like load up your game or whatever, you can just like crack it open and wiggle the cables around, reseat things and fix it, or change a BIOS setting. If it's for your significant other, probably want to get something with a support contract. So if magic smoke appears or something doesn't
it's
work,
your fault
you've got a phone
forever.
number.
Yeah, I don't know if I want that weight on my shoulders. I'm like, let's go to a big box store. I know how the sales guys work. I can get you a great deal, and it's going to work right out of the box. And if anything does happen, we'll bring it right here. If they can't fix it, then they're going to give you a new one off my hands, out of my hands. So
and Dom does raise some of the compatibility kind of things you can walk into where it looks like things should work together, but unless you've got kind of an appreciation of the speeds and timings of different components, which
I'm a Mac user. How am I supposed to know any of that?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a long-time PC builder, so maybe I just kind of plow under some of this pain that I've had to endure and learn over the years. But yeah, unless you can remember kind of what speed memory works with what CPU, may not be the best thing to do.
Yeah, basically no Mac user knows any of that because we can't access our RAM. We can't access our CPU. Not on anything past like 2012 or something.
Oh yeah,
you can get to the RAM, but if you want to get to anything else, it involves peeling the screen off, which is not very nice. And
I did have a MacBook ages ago where the last one you could like flip over and unscrew the bottom, and I swapped the spinning disk for an SSD and upgraded the RAM, but that was the last time I had a Mac.
Yeah, now the screens are glued in, so in order to get to the disk or the graphics card, that whole screen has to be deglued, and you have to use special tools to go along them and peel them back, just so you can get in there and do stuff.
Yeah, I really hope that the world comes full circle.
Cole said something
use screws again,
really good, which I agree with, which is like, I like Macs, but I hate Apple. It's kind of accurate. It's like, I like my iPhone, but I hate Apple.
Yeah.
So it's
Apple does the thing where they make the hardware and they make all of the internal. Well, they don't make all the internal components, but they have a lot of control over those internal components, and then they make all of the software so they can tie it together, and you don't have this like garbage dumpster fire like with Windows where it says please connect to the internet to install your network card driver, and you're just like, who knows why? This kind of crazy.
Yeah, they just work. They just work. They look good. They work, but you also pay a pretty penny for them. And if you have any issues, you got to bring it to them. You can't open it yourself. There's nothing you can really do. I mean, my most my newest Mac is a 2018 laptop. Everything else, I've got like a 2010 iMac that still works great. I can still take the screen off. I can still technically do that easily. But yeah, any of the new Macs, it's just like, come on, Apple.
Yeah, I did a memory upgrade on one of those old iMacs, the ones that had the large white plastic. That was the last one that was easy to take apart with the large white plastic monitor. And I upgraded the memory to like 3 gigs for someone on that. That was still pretty difficult. That wasn't completely glued, but it was like a couple of hours to carefully tease it apart and maneuver things around.
Yeah.
We're being complained at. There's not enough drone talk. So what else?
In other news, drone-related
anybody else go flying and stuff? Stephen and Jack managed to. Cole, what are you been up to? Did you find any big radio towers to fly around?
Well, I did not find any big radio towers. I am keeping my eye out like a hawk for anything that remotely, resembles a dish or tower or anything. What did I do? Where did I go fly? Oh, yeah. I went out the other day. It was raining all day, and then it was starting to be around sort of late evening towards sunset, and the sun decided to come out. The clouds went away, and I was like, oh, better charge up some batteries and go fly for a bit. I went to just a little local sort of park area not too far from me. And I was just testing out some new settings on my Kiss Ultra. I was kind of messing around with the set point weight and just seeing how it felt, different throttle and whatever. But yeah, nothing too crazy. I don't know, just kind of cruise around really. I've actually started to really enjoy just cruising around. Like I was really heavy into like freestyling and like I gotta find a bando every time I fly and whatever. But there's something really therapeutic about going to like a really chill sort of park with trees and putting on some nice music and just kind of like cruising on the treetops and kind of sending it out a little further than maybe I guess I'll keep my mouth quiet on that one.
That's all I like to do, Cole. It's not all about the flippy flappy. Just find the most exciting thing I do these days is I find a field, and those fields have the tram lines down where they plow them. You cruise low along those, and you're just like, oh, this is very relaxing. You just watch the fields come past you, and you watch your shadow of your quad, and like, oh, that's nice. I think I'm going to flip around at the top and come back and do it again. And
there's something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of cruising around, did Curry get his OpenHD setups in the air? I think you did an OpenHD video. So have you been cruising around with the quad on OpenHD?
I did. I've edited the video. It's not released yet until next week. But the quad did not work, unfortunately. There seems to be a problem somewhere along the line. What we've got is it was built up lovely, it all went in, and the screen is like, if the screen's this big, I've got picture here, and the rest of it is like digital breakup, and I can't figure out what's wrong with that. But okay. I did fly the wing using the new antenna, the Maple Leaf, named after Cole. And that worked brilliantly. We had a lot less breakup. We got all the way out to a kilometer without a problem before I crashed it into the bush. But that's looking really good. So what's happened with OpenHD just recently is they've got their shit together. Basically, they've got their new version, the OpenHD Evo, into release candidate. I think they've got a couple of release candidates now, and so I'll be updating to that version. And hopefully it's going to work and sort out some of the problems. Some of the problems I was having previously is some of the telemetry was not being worked out properly. So I could see that my range in total was like 3 kilometers and my home arrow is spinning correctly, but my distance from home was 0 because that part of the telemetry wasn't working, for example. And I need to upgrade that wing to INAF 6 and try and get it less vibration, because I had the thing with the artificial horizon indicator going out again, which led to me crashing.
Oh dear.
But,
so with the quad, you could only see the top of the display, and the rest was just garbage. But the top few lines were okay.
Yeah, the top few lines were okay. The quad at the moment.
Is that a bad MIPI cable? Do you think? Because I can't think how it would.
It could be. I'll have to sort it out. Here's the quad at the moment. It's OpenHD is back off of it. Fortunately, I made it very modular, so I could just literally lift the parts out, and I'm trying to get walk snail in there. But I just need the pin out for this board, which I can't find, because a bit like you're on, Stephen, it should have a 9-volt out from the flight controller, so I can power it that way. And it just about reaches, because it's a very long body to get.
Yeah.
Why are you going upwards? Come down here, camera.
I think the quad is your face.
It's my face.
Quad face.
Follow. Useless. I'll do it myself. Hang on, where are we?
Right.
Take control. Yeah, it's quite long. So the There's some nice holes for it to sit here, but I've checked it and it can reach there, but it kind of needs to go underneath the board. So I have to do some.
Oh, yeah. You don't have a 20 by 20 in front of the flight controller because that could be quite handy because it's really easy to extend the VTX antenna.
Not enough space for it there, unfortunately.
Yeah, with the old DJI setups, I actually to do that 10S quad, I had to kind of go through the parts bin, and I had a VTX with an 8cm cable and one of the nano cameras, and then I had to rifle through the parts bin and find like a 12cm cable because the standard cable is just stupidly short. Like you'd have to put the VTX in front of the flight controller, which is usually a world of pain. Like some frames can do it, and the longer 7-inch frames probably are okay, but on a 5-inch, if you've got, imagine the arms crossing, on the cross in the middle is where you have your flight controller and ESC. You usually put the VTX away from the nose, and some will have another 20 by 20 mount between the nose and the center of the frame. But that usually means like just
cramming it in there.
Surgery. Yeah, trying to do really. Yeah. You've got to push the cables in really tight, and that MIPI cable is really delicate, so you can't push it too much or you'll break it, and you've got to pay £10 for another stupid cable if you do that. So, yeah, it gets annoying.
It's always troubling to sort of fit things into quads that are sort of pre-built, where they're sort of pre-built to like, oh look, the stack comes exactly to the roof and nothing else will fit, and this fits exactly there, and it's like, okay, I have to start. If I have to make a little mount for it, so I have like a 3D bit just so I can move the other bit away from the mounting holes, just so I can not have that cable tight. Then,
you upgrade your flight controller, and it has like a JST plug that's like 2 millimeters to the side, and it hits the one on the ESC in just the wrong place, or some like little component is going to hit the ESC. And you need to bump it up by 2 mil, and then the frame doesn't let you do it, and you've got to kind of buckle the top. Oh, it's just world of pain.
It is a nightmare.
Oh, what do we have here? A wild curry.
I thought I'd go have a word with Graham Farmer, see if he's got any suggestions before I try and just random.
Like what happened to my Open HD wing?
Hedgerow.
It got stuck at the top of a hedgerow. So I am stood in the bucket of a tractor, being driven up to the hedgerow.
Would you recommend this as a standard quad or wing retrieval process, standing in a tractor?
The good thing about farmers is they don't believe in risk assessments. They're just like, get in a tractor. I thought he meant in the cab. I was like, no, you stand in that bucket. I'm like really high.
Don't worry, mate. You still got 2 of everything.
But like, yeehaw, okay. Get on in, get on up.
I mean, it's right up there, that wing.
Yeah, it literally, what happened, it's completely my fault. I'd launched it, auto launch, and sort of brought it round. I put it into return to home. I fought with the goggles, like, can't work, you bastards, trying to get the HDMI cable not to move so I could actually get a picture. And I'd left it in stabilizers, so switching it to manual. So when the AHI started to go out, so it was fine for like 10 minutes, and then it started going like this. Obviously, stabilize was fighting. It's like, no, look, you're sideways, you're upside down. And eventually, to the point, it was like, no, look, we're fine. We're spinning around into the ground. And it's like, why didn't I just switch it into manual? Then it would just be the annoyance on the screen. But my fault.
You did a pretty good job because you've got a massive field and you still managed to find like a hedge that you can't reach the top of. Everything else looks like it's about 5 foot tall.
Yeah, if it had crashed straight into the ground, it would have got more damage. That hedgerow at least helped slow it down. I mean, it did rip into the wing, and I lost one of those antennas that got ripped off. But unfortunately, I ordered 5 at once.
So it's a tactical landing, you're saying?
A tactical crashing. It's a typical thing. If I could have had a whole field, and if there was one rock in there, that's what you would have hit. That's just the way it goes.
Well, I did that when flying with Jack. I was like, oh yeah, coming into land, and I had this ka-tunk! We're in this kind of meadow land. It's all soft as far as you can see. And I looked, and like the only rock in eyesight, it's like I bounced my quad off it. Like, how did I do that?
And it's like Jack, whenever he crashes, he found like a dead sheep to get twisted onto his props and stuff.
Yeah, he didn't this time. He did try and trim the trees a bit. There was some aggressive arborealism going on. Really
Would
went
you like
hard
to
on
know?
those trees.
would you like to know some bad news?
Let's hear the dirt.
I don't know.
Let's hear the drama.
What's the? Don't want to be
This
too
is
bad.
my
I don't want
video.
to start crying.
Oh, didn't check your
Jack,
exposure settings again. I
Jack.
told you,
Jesus.
Jack, always check before flying, bro. You
Oh
pull
my
your
word,
phone
that
out.
is extreme exposure. Did you forget which country you're in or something? Were you flying in the night last time?
I don't know. Yeah,
That's impressive, mate. That's impressive.
That's almost as good as when
Hey.
you start your GoPro and then you find out it's set to
slideshow,
time
camera,
lapse or something.
Yeah,
Oh
time lapse.
yeah.
I just don't
So, yeah,
trust
so
myself
new
to
rule
remember
of
to
thumb,
adjust that
Jack.
stuff. I just leave
I-
it on auto.
New rule of thumb, Jack. The first thing you do when you get to a spot to fly, you take out your phone, you turn Bluetooth on your GoPro, you connect to the GoPro Quick app, and you view your exposure
This
settings.
is getting involved already.
Right. The guy turns
it
up at
takes-
the
it
field
literally
with a
takes 1
freaking
minute.
laptop. He's got a laptop at the field.
Or
I don't even
you
take a
just
laptop.
put it on auto
Use
and you stop
all of-
trying to be poncy with your settings.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with flying on auto.
Well,
Just be basic and have fun.
just yeah, that's true. That's true. And in most scenarios, it's going to be perfectly fine, unless you're in the dark or
Yeah. Unless someone's paying you money for it. I mean, if you have pride in your work and you are, standing to make a buck or two from it, yeah, spend the time adjusting it. Or if you've got 100,000 followers who are desperate to see your next video, sure. But
See, I don't have any of that, but it only takes me 2 minutes to go set my ISO range, and it's like I feel like that's a huge thing with FPV pilots is like they don't spend that extra maybe 1 or 2 minutes to get the camera settings dialed in, and then
I feel like Cole's out there with a color board in front of his GoPro every time. Just like, I'll just hold this here so I can color grade this properly when I get back.
No, not even close, and I can prove that I have an SD card with the proof. No, yes, it is nice when you go out and you just go, but it only takes a minute to get the right settings.
this is my old Runcam hybrid little 4-inch that I was messing around on. Everything is on auto.
Was
I
this
am
just
not
the
classy.
other day with Jack?
Yeah, this is Jack.
Oh, I remember. I recognize this spot, Jack.
It's not the greatest flying ever. It's a quad I've only just built, and it's a little bit rough. The props are a bit messed up, but yeah, it was fun. It was a good fun fly, and I'm flying analog for the first time in a long while. Just messing around, seeing how many notches I can take out the props on these trees. Yeah, it was a good laugh.
It looks like a fun spot.
Yeah,
I hear
we
Jack
got there
playing with
just when
his
the light
GoPro.
was pretty, the shadows are long. Yeah, it was fun. And Jack managed to prune the trees. I think Jack's going for some kind of like large-scale bonsai art here, where he goes out here with a 5-inch every once in a while and finds these gnarled trees and just sculpts them the way he wants them,
A little HD or a little hedge trimming, I should say.
Yeah, but they are quite picturesque, just at the top of this hill, looking down on this big old valley. And it's quite a laugh just to whiz around them,
Not
I do
sponsored
like
by
this.
Manscaped. Hedge trimming.
I am not. It is just not connecting at all. I hate this.
I will be your troubleshooting guide after this. Don't worry.
I'm glad some of it came out. It's like 2.7K 60, and I think I tried to mess around with some of the frame setup after your previous comments, Cole, but yeah, it's good
Wait.
enough, as they say.
Wait, what about my comments? Sorry, remind me.
So you were talking about the kind of shutter timing being so many degrees out, and yeah, I think I actually tried to set up that Runcam hybrid according to your guidance.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I mean, I give guidance, but I'm also a cheater sometimes, and I'll most of the time I try to follow what I like. There are quote unquote rules when it comes to settings, but I don't really fully follow them. But it, especially with GoPros, it's a little tricky too because it's not like an actual camera that you can change aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Like you only have shutter and ISO. So then you got to mess around with ND filters if you really want to do it according to the the cinematic regulations is not a real thing, but yeah, cinematic, man. Got to get the most cinematic settings, dude.
I think it actually looks okay. We had very flattering lighting, of course.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is me
Oh, it looks really
orbiting
good.
Jack as he reviews his pruning attempts. He's seeing whether it did the job or not.
Yeah, no, those settings look good. It's like actually the last time I went out to fly, it was a bit of a disaster because, well, I guess I can do some show and tell. I messed up my camera settings last time, so I'm not the Wizard of Oz.
I just messed up the recording full stop. A lot of these videos are very short
on
because
auto.
the SD card kept ejecting midway through the flight. It didn't fully eject, but it kind of just unpopped. There's that push pop setting with micro SD cards. Well, the Runcam Hybrid likes to unpop itself when you do a high G maneuver. So I think I need to dig out the funky little protector they used to sell with them that adds a little wire clip over it. Maybe put that in there.
I've got replacement SD card things that you can reflow, and
I can't reflow, Jack. I'll just butcher it and then throw the board away.
Every time I've done anything regards with that sort of stuff, the SD card just doesn't work.
So
I could always put some glue on the back of the SD card and then make it really tight fit and jam it in and then pull it out with a pair of pliers. That'd probably work. Sorry, Scott, Cole, you're saying this is the...
Yeah, so this was when I had my settings. My settings were great when the sun was out. But then 2 seconds later...
That's a very red running track.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Oh.
There is all the red.
Let's go back and find it again.
He likes to pretend.
Is this a session? Session 5, whatever.
No. This is Hero 11 Mini.
Oh, fancy.
It has enough battery to.
That is the running track really that red? Because that seems like a kind of disco dance floor shade of red.
No, it's very red. Oh. It's extremely red. Yeah, it's crazy red.
It's as red as that maple leaf.
Okay, so here's look at this. So now the clouds came back, and then hold on.
Sorry, Cole. I'm terrible. You're not defending yourself. It's weird.
Well, I'm trying to show something. I'm not.
He's trying to get to the point, Jack. Just for once in this show, there was actually a point.
Yeah,
you may not recognize a point when one flies past you, but there was one here.
I don't like it.
Okay, well, enough of your guys' shenanigans. So as you see here, my camera settings are way too dark. So I had an ND16 on. My my ISO was at 100, max 100, and I mean it's still passable because it's 10-bit
audio viewers. It's a nice bit.
It looks
flying.
Dark.
The sky is kind of nicely set up, but the ground is pretty dark.
Yeah, pretty
it's
dark.
It's almost Cole. Like if you'd have just left it on auto, you'd have had a better experience. Just saying.
Well,
just put it on
yeah, but if I put it on auto
and full throttle, that's the way to do it.
If I put it on auto though, then it's going to put the ISO to max, and I'm going to have grainy, ugly-looking footage.
Well, yeah, but you could just throw it.
Yeah, but this is much better because you can't see.
Well, I have an argument here because Hero 11 Mini is 10-bit footage. I was actually able to go into post-production, up the shadows, and everything was beautiful.
You can reach down into the shadows and rip them up, can you?
Yeah, you guys want to see the difference?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Just learned some shit from Cole.
Let's see if the shadows actually look good or if the MPEG compression just turned them into giant squares, which are now slightly brighter giant squares.
Let me plug in my SSD for a second here. Can you guys still see my screen?
That's often the trouble. If you record stuff in the extended color range, it's all great, but the codec thinks that the dark areas aren't really visible to the human eye, so it just compresses the snot out of them, and they just turn into big rectangles. And then you make them brighter, and you're like, there's a lot of slightly brighter big rectangles now around the place.
Well, man, I need to go back to flying my Hero 5 session because I've kind of been addicted to this 11 Mini since I got it. It just looks really nice. And
has it overheated for you yet, or is it all right?
I never had any issues with it, knock on wood, but yeah, no, it's been great. Well, I'm trying to think, was there any issues? I think I think the battery does seem to turn itself or run itself down even when it's off. But I think that every GoPro kind of does that.
All
Maybe
batteries do that on every device, unless you like physically take them out of the
This
device.
is the
and make
last
sure they're not
GoPro I'm ever
connected.
buying. I'm not doing it again. I'm so fed up with them now.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I'm not enjoying flying with a GoPro, I have to say.
They overheating, battery problems. Having this media module, which is great for if I'm in the field trying to do some like, hi, I'm in the field sort of thing. Sometimes that decides like, oh, you press the on button, doesn't mean anything to me. You have to take it out, take the battery out, put it back in, all that sort of
Digital
crap.
VTX is the way forward, man. Just like record by default. Don't fanny around with cameras.
Well, you know
Unless
what?
you're being
I
paid for it.
I don't even put my GoPro on my quad most of the time. This is just for like recording me and stuff as I'm doing stuff, and it still is hateful.
Awful.
And it's
All
like,
right, so Cole, you were showing us some of your fancy editing here.
Yes, I got to plug in my DVR SD card because it's saying missing file. What I was going to say though is I really want to build if I want to go digital and I want to build a long range, like 6 or 7 inch, just a no GoPro, just O3 air unit. And I've seen some pretty cool results from it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people with like the Chimera 7 that's been out for a while from iFlight, and there's some wonderful results that have come out from that. Loads of people have been cruising around with it.
Okay, so let's go to here. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of all my silly fancy stuff on the screen here.
So you're going to show us a post-processed version of that where you got it, the 10-bit.
Yeah.
Pull up.
Oh, yes. Well, so I don't know if you guys noticed. So, well, let me see where I start off. So I start off and
First thing I noticed, the sky is really spankingly bright. The sky is like the most perfect blue sky.
Yeah, yeah. But okay, so hold on. I just want to say one thing. So you see down at the bottom middle where
the running track is still the same unreal shade of red, but everything else is slightly brighter.
Do you see this little? Can you see my cursor or like near where this 38 seconds is? So that's right around where I'm sitting. Well,
okay.
Let's see if I can kind of show you when I turn around. So I'm sitting at that little bottom part right there, and I end up going to the back where the woods are. Well, like I said, my camera settings were messed up, so I'm flying through the woods, and
you do notice that as soon as you're like not looking up and you look down, the image has a lot more detail and a lot more color in it. If there's sky in the image, it's definitely kind of forcing everything else down. It feels like.
Yeah, well, GoPros have always been a bit crap at that. If there's a bright light ahead, it's always darkening the floor. They seem to have a terrible.
Well, they're going to expose for the brightness. They're not going to.
But he says he's locking off his exposure, so it shouldn't be doing that.
It's not fully locked off. Like there's still an ISO range, like a slight one, most of the time. Like maybe like 1 to 200 or. Something like that.
But you get that because you're in a quad and you're tilting the camera around so much. It's really obvious when you're going forward and then you punch up and you look down at the ground.
Oh yeah,
and you go along from like dark ground, dark trees, and you punch up and look down at the ground, and it's suddenly like an emerald green all of a sudden.
Yeah, yeah. So look at this. So this is the original footage with nothing on it. You can't see anything. It's completely garbage. You can't see anything at all. That was this. This is the power of the 10-bit footage right here.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you see no details on the left, on the right. Now you can see all the details on the left and the right.
Putting a curve over it or something.
It does seem like you're introducing some grey. Like there's a slight haze of greyness as you brought it up.
Yes, but then I do a color correction and then you kind of fix it. Yeah. So it definitely like. Well, here I can let me. Yeah. So basically, what I did was I just literally upped the shadow by like, just a slight amount. Oh shoot! Oops. Hold on here. Yeah. I basically just up the shadows, nothing else, and then did a bit of color correction and with a little, like, just very basic. It's super. Added a little saturation to the blues in the sky. You can kind of see.
Nice to see. So you'd recommend basically get a GoPro that can do 10-bit because you can rescue a bit of a misstep in terms of the luminance and the shutter setup.
To be honest, no, I wouldn't say go get a GoPro that has 10-bit. Just do that. I would say get your exposure right before you start flying.
Just set it to auto.
Set it to auto, yeah. Set it to auto.
Playing devil's advocate, Cole, how much more effort would it be just to fully animate it? Because you're already using all these special effects just to like, oh no, it's not looking like that. So just animate the whole thing.
Animate the exposure, you mean?
No, just make a complete CGI footage and pretend you were flying it. How far away are you from all these effects? I'm
I
being
don't know.
deliberately mean.
It's okay. I didn't pick up on that because maybe I'm.
I haven't
bad
watched
with
this
British
video
humor,
yet. Is it any
but-
good? The dual operator, where he puts the second operator gimbal on the drone.
Yeah, this thing looks
seems so.
crazy. Yeah, I watched this. Very cool. Except he kept breaking the gimbal arm on it every time he
Yeah.
like landed. He basically broke it.
They're not designed for high G, are they? They're quite delicate systems.
Remind me, we'll need to talk about this again soon
Yeah.
because that is all we've got time for, unfortunately.
Ah.
If you're listening to this and you're an audio listener, you guys are all. We've got a Patreon that pays the lovely editor and the hosting and everything. And earlier on, I had a meeting, and apparently, like YouTube, and you're a podcaster. Apparently, you're podcasting on YouTube, and then you upload the footage. You're just doing it because you can say it's a podcast then, which is pretty much what I've been saying the whole time. But thank
Did anybody
you.
else understand that sentence? Because
I didn't understand that.
No.
It felt like there were several sentences and maybe some.
It felt like there were words
editing.
in some sort of order, but not making any sense for us.
Well, apparently, if you record a podcast on YouTube and then upload the audio and then assign it to a RSS feed, it's so that you can call it a podcast instead of just
Official.
sat round conferencing or chatting amongst yourselves.
Okay,
Could
so
we
we
call
have
it a
a podcast.
netcast instead?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe we need to use the podcast tab that YouTube has so gracefully bestowed upon
No,
us.
because then people won't be able to find any of our content because YouTube just introduced that tab like a month ago, and it'll probably be gone in 2 months' time.
That's
'Cause
true.
that's how
And
YouTube
also,
works.
podcast sounds like it's just audio. We are
Yeah.
multimedia, to
We're
coin the
fully a
80s phrase.
multimedia experience.
Well, I
Yeah.
reckon if we use that tab, maybe YouTube.
We're a rich audiovisual
Will
experience.
pump us out to more people because it's a new feature.
Or rather,
Yeah,
we're a
yeah,
poor audiovisual experience, but we're definitely an audiovisual experience.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got time for. Thank you to all our lovely Patreons. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. You Patreons rock. It means that we can swear. And next week we're gonna start adding mock product sponsors, so you guys get to enjoy products like Jack's Sticky Glue Emporium stickiness,
Sticky Jack's
and-
Glue Emporium.
yep, and Tony's Man Milk.
Mhm.
It's your meal replacement,
Freshly pumped.
and the 2-stroke ball and face trimmer. Yep. So look out for those.
Slightly
And,
soiled mattresses deliverable
Coming
within the
soon
M25.
to a store near you. Call right now. Get your
Yep.
get your.
Cole's dumped used mattresses coming to you via the hotel elevator.
Yes, exactly.
Available
No,
to
we're-
anyone standing underneath whatever Cole's address currently is.
Yeah,
123 Fake Street.
I know. It is funny. Yep. Today has been Stephen's birthday. Happy birthday.
Cheers,
Happy
thanks.
birthday, Stephen.
Birthday.
to me. I'm old. Birthdays don't really
How
matter when
old?
you get old, but it was nice.
How
old are
are
Too
you?
old. Too old.
Too old to tell
I'm
you.
the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
I feel I'm still the oldest by some margin, so don't worry.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
But you've got hair, so it doesn't really count.
Yep.
It's all right. Well,
Hair?
you've
Shiny
got
egg.
It's just
more going on
allocated
here.
to a different area.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you're now playing the Star Wars video.
Yep.
Oh yeah, May the
After
4th. It is May the
this-
4th.
Yep. After this, go over to Curry Kitten's channel, and then there's the dad and daughter Star Wars extravaganza. You'll be joined by everyone's favourite Curry Kitten
Goodbye.
and my buddy Cole.
See ya.
And I've been Brighton Till I Fly. Thank you very much.
What about the man with the mustache?
Take care. Bye, everyone.
No, we done him first. It
You
was,
did.
It was his
We went on
birthday.
this
Oh,
rambling
I got sidetracked by the
birthday thing.
birthday
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
Oh,
When we're
wow.
talking about dirty mattress flinging and all sorts. Yeah,
yeah.
heat
sorry.
stroke, hair removal.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Have a good night.